All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. So today our topic is DentalCAD 3.1 Rijeka highlights. So we have a lot of great new features that are available now in this version that we're going to be showing you and going over. My name is Lucas. I'm an application support engineer at our Boston office, and I'm joined by my colleague Patricia. Hey, Patricia.
Hi, hello everyone.
Patricia will be helping answer your questions during the webinar. So you should have a Q&A button on your side. So if at any time during the webinar you have any questions, just go ahead and type those in. And as long as they're related to the content that we're going over, we'll try to get those answered during the session. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Quick legal message. We just ask that you don't copy or distribute the broadcast today. So the recordings will be available if you go back to the registration page for webinars on our website. You'll see links for each webinar to watch the recording, so you can get those afterwards. All right, switch over to DentalDB and we'll start going through the software tools. So there's a few new things in DentalDB that we'll go over here. First, in upper right corner of the screen, you'll see a couple new icons here. First is this, which is what we call a my.exocad account. So starting with this version, we do have user login accounts. It's a brief registration step that you'll also log into the account, and this will be used in the future for things like dongle lists, license management, which we're all looking forward to. So there'll be some good things coming up there. The other icon, this bell icon, this is a notification history. So if you use this software before, you'll probably notice that during certain steps, notification messages pop up. It could be just informational messages or errors and things like that. So now those are all collected in a notification history box. So you can go back and see what those look like. You'll probably see some come up in the CAD software we'll take a look at. So the case we're going to be working on first is a bridge that we're going to show some things with the virtual articulator. So there are some other buttons here. I'm going to go to the work type selection screen. First is the overlay work type. You'll notice that is new here. So this has been designed to work for kind of like a 3/4 prep crowns, and it's just better adapted for dealing with preps that might have concavity in the middle in the root area, and better tooth adaptation to those complex prep shapes. On the right side, there's a button for stock abutments and the implant-based options. So that allows manufacturers to create abutment libraries for stock abutments. It just gives you more accurate design. So instead of scanning the titanium part, you can actually do the scan body workflow for those. And the software will filter out and show you only stock abutment libraries also when you choose that button. I'm going to jump back for a second here. So this case, we're going to show you a new function in the wizard for virtual tooth extraction. So I'm going to modify the order real quick here. I'm going to left click and drag tooth number 29 to 27. I'm going to click on 27 here. So a new option over here, virtual tooth extraction. So if I change this to yes in the wizard, we're now going to get the step to virtually extract that tooth from our model scan, so we can place a pontic in that area. There's also buttons up here. This is also new, copy or mirror scans anatomy. So in the past versions, that was triggered by placing adjacent teeth on the tooth arch. Now there's also a button over here where you can indicate yes. There's a new workflow. We're not covering it today, but if you have a pre-op scan with the case and you set that to yes, the software can automatically copy or adapt single unit restorations to your pre-op scan to save a little bit of time there. So for this case, we have that set up as yes for virtual tooth extraction. I'll click OK to save that. Click our save button up here. Last thing, but really exciting development in DentalDB is in the lower left corner, 3D preview of your scan files. So as soon as you get some scans in the project directory, they will show up here in that lower left corner. This can be popped out to a larger view. We can even go up to full screen on that. Same controls as in the CAD software, so we can rotate, pan, zoom, and there's also a little show hide list up here, so you can turn objects off and on in that separate view. So a great tool for examining your scan data. A lot of times when we get scan files and you're not quite sure what teeth are prepped or what the situation is, so now you can see that right there. All right, I think that is everything with DentalDB. So we'll switch over to CAD software now. Actually, let's hit design, launch this case here. So a few seconds, our CAD software will launch. Then we'll start going through some new stuff with the virtual articulator. CAD tooth models, that's another new feature. I'll explain that in a little further in depth a little later on in this case. So once our scans are loaded, our first wizard step, start virtual articulator, and click that button. So we do have, we have a pretty huge list of articulators available in the software. This version adds a few more. So we have Artex CR Gold Special Edition, Corso Art, Ivoclar Stratus 300, and the SAM 2P are new in this version. So pick one of the new ones here. We'll just run a calculation with our default settings here. Virtual articulation calculations really quick. This is one of the steps that we're using the GPU for to speed things up, so we're not waiting for long calculations in the software. So we'll hit OK to save our articulation. Articulation results panels in the upper right corner. So at any time they're in design, we can go back and see our model movements based on that. So I'm going to keep going here. This case has imported margin lines, nothing new here. I'm just going to click next and we'll just use those imported margin lines for both tooth preps. At the crown bottom step, I'm just going to click next and use our default settings for cement gaps. And here's the new step here. So extract tooth number 27. So a really easy process. I just need to left click anywhere on our scan in the tooth number 27 area. The software segments that tooth pretty quickly. Default option here, the software is automatically converting the original shape to a pre-op scan. So it turns it to that teal color. I'll turn that off so we can see the gingiva area. So there, it's removed the tooth from the model, filled in the hole, created the gingiva collapsed socket, and there's a control point on the arrow. I can change the direction of the gingiva collapse. A slider over in the wizard that we can change and adjust the depth of the gingiva area. And you can also change that to direct copy, similar to mirroring and copying the teeth. If you have direct copy selected, the original tooth shape will be used instead of a library tooth for your design. For our purposes, I'm going to leave it as a pre-op scan. There's also some tools here to correct the selected area. If you think the software didn't identify the area correctly, you can simply move this line around and adjust your tooth selection, click the apply button, and then it recalculates the extraction. All right, so that looks good there. We'll click next. Here's a copy mirror tooth tool. Nothing new here. I'm going to use library teeth in the next step here. So this step, tooth placement, we can see the color map colors projected on our library teeth. So really common request from people to be able to change the default option here. So it comes up to show interferes contacts by default. Personally, I like changing it to show contact areas. So this is now available in settings so that we can actually change that default option that shows up there. So I just went to the tools menu, click on settings. A lot of new options here. If I scroll down just a little bit, there's one called show distance initial mode, and now you can toggle between your preferred show distances starting point, so you don't have to change that every time. All right, so this step, we're going to go to Advanced tab and Instant Anatomic Morphing. So this was in a previous version. There's a couple improvements here for this version. So if you're not familiar with this tool, let me turn off our pre-op scan. So this is where we left click and drag on a library tooth, and the software automatically adjusts the occlusion to match the opposing. So this is a huge time saver for freeforming and design work afterwards. So we can see over here, second by, for example, is sticking through the scan. I just left click on this and move it. It adjusts, so now we're not overlapping the scan at all. There's a button over here in the wizard I can click, apply to all. I had already adjusted 3, but if I hadn't done that yet, that would just bring all 4 teeth down into more ideal occlusion here. So let me do a little rotation on our cuspid. We also have directional scaling. So I'm holding down the Control and Shift key here. So this is really useful for scaling adjustments at this step. And of course, we can see our show distances, and dynamic is checked because we've run the virtual articulator simulation. So now we can see how the teeth are contacting through the full range of articulator movements. Also, in the wizard over here, there's a couple sliders. So what this is a tool that you can dynamically adjust occlusion or incisal edges between pointed and flat. So if I move this over to pointed, for example, we can see really exaggerated pointy cusp tips. You can move over to flat occlusion and any spot in between, and then the slider will adjust our anterior teeth. And of course, there's a shortcut. So if you don't want to adjust all the teeth at the same time, you can hold the Control key, mouse wheel, and then I can adjust the tooth individually just by rolling the mouse wheel in between pointed or flat options there. Let me just go through, let me shrink down our cuspid a little bit. Tooth setup looks okay. Click the next button here. So this message that's coming up here, this is another really huge feature in this version. So what the software is doing at certain steps, it's saving our tooth models. So it's saving the position, it's saving any freeform work and adjustments you've done on them as an OBJ file for each tooth in the project directory. So if you have this feature turned on, at certain times during the design, you'll get prompted to save your tooth models. So what that is used for, a bunch of different scenarios, but most commonly for things like Smile Creator, maybe you set up the case as a mock-up and you want to change the work type later on to full crowns. Normally you have to go back and start the design over if you change the work type, but in this scenario, if you change the work type in DB, hit design, software will prompt you to load existing tooth models and save a lot of work on redesigning cases. So if you need to change something like a material, or if you duplicate a case, you can copy your designs over. So that's what it's talking about for saving tooth models. Let me jump back to the settings screen real quick. So there's also some new settings in there related to that tool. So if I scroll down to the bottom of the list, you can configure which workflows automatically save teeth. So if you only want that feature for Smile Creator, you can turn that on. I had it checked off for all workflows. So no matter what I'm going through and designing with library teeth, it will save the tooth models. Another thing, so we have kind of an important UI change here. So you'll notice that if you're familiar with previous versions, the Adapt tab has been removed, really. So the Adapt is now in the Free tab on this button here. So for all the functions of trimming the pontics of the tissue, your contacts, occlusal trimming, that's all been moved right into the Free tab. So we like to add new tools and functionality to the software, and we also try to find ways of keeping the user interface simple and easy to use. So to save some clicks back and forth to the different free tabs. It's pretty common as you're working, you'll adapt something, go back to add, remove, or smooth tool, and then go back to adapt again to check. So just to save a little time, those have been consolidated into the same tab. Another little subtle thing, I don't know if you've noticed, as I clicked on the Adapt tab, I'll click on it again. On the articulator panel up here in the upper right corner, if I click on it in the Adapt mode here, this button shows up, Recalculate Articulator Simulation. So this is pretty huge also. So what this does is allows us to rerun the virtual articulator simulation without having to go back and bring up the whole articulator panel again. Another big time saver. So, and then we also have access to the choose which teeth influence articulator movement button. So for things like, let me cut our pontics. Yeah, okay, that should be fine there. So we can click on choose which teeth influence our articulator movement. For example, if I am working on a design and I want to rerun the articulator and have the opposing guided off of our actual design, we can do that real quick here. I can click on mark teeth by click. Hold down the select, click OK, and then restart articulator movement. That's going to rerun the calculation. So we don't see the articulator here, which is, it's not critical. It's still mathematically the same. It's still calculating the articulator offset. So you can see my color map has been updated. So now that's been adjusted and the opposing's guided off of my designs. So anytime, you don't even have to go into expert mode. You can get to that just by going to the freeforming and adapt tool here. Next thing we'll talk about, I will jump into expert mode for the next item here. Get prompted to save my teeth again. We have some new functions for the add remove mesh tool. So I'm going to go to the tools button over here, add remove mesh. And another new function here, you can add multiple meshes as antagonists, or they're added as generic visualization meshes, and there's a tool where you can switch a visualization mesh to an antagonist and vice versa. So let me actually backtrack a second here, turn on my antagonist scan, right click on it, and this is the new option here, convert antagonist to visualization object, or vice versa. If you have something as a visualization scan, you can load that as an antagonist to allow you to switch out different scenarios for opposing if you need to. One other thing in add remove mesh I'll show you, so we'll go back there real quick, that is really useful. We now have the option of loading from scene files. So you can click on load from scene. It can be a scene from this case or a different case. You just browse to where your DentalCAD file is. Click the open button. The software is going to go in that scene file and pull out everything that was in there in a separate window. And I can pick an item here and assign it to a new scan type in my current case that I'm working on now. So I have the show hide list here. This is everything that was in that scene file. Obviously, if it's a case that was scanned at a different time and the orientation is probably different, so there's a tool here, register scenes, that does a scan alignment operation. So that ensures that the item that you're pulling from this scene file gets aligned correctly with the one that you're working on now. So you can pull in teeth that were designed, wax up, anything that you want to pull from another scene file to your current case. Close out of that window. Is multiple antagonists. Okay, so now we'll go back to Wizard. Next thing I'm going to talk about is a new tool that we've brought in to help with capturing and organizing screenshots for case records. So this is a new tool on the tools menu. So the original screenshot tool is still here. So this is the button you click on and it grabs a screenshot of the current position of the case and automatically saves it in the project directory. The new tool that we've added here is screenshot and image management. So if I click on this button, that brings up a screenshot management console window. To get screenshots, there's a couple buttons at the bottom. I can click on this one on the left, capture main view only. This is useful for just general case capture pictures. So it gets a full screen picture minus any of the tools and wizard panels there. So you can see it's just a nice clean image of your case. The other tool we can do is capture manually, and this is a tool that just allows you to snip a certain section. Let me grab some of the menus here. So that tool allows you to capture a certain section of the screen or tools and menus if you are intentionally trying to capture that information. So that'll be captured there as well. Another really useful function here, if I hover the mouse over one of the images and the pencil icon here is an edit button. So what this is a shortcut to launch an image editing program. It's on Paint by default, but you can choose a different editor if you want to. So here I can mark up or type on the screenshots. Let me just mark an area real quick. Circle our molar, maybe we want to point out or make a note on something. Click the save button in your image editor, close out of there, and now your change is on your screenshot in exocad. So that is how you can edit the images. You can adjust the resolution of the screenshots, and I can hit save all. There's also a delete button for individual ones. So if I grab one and I don't want that saved with the project, you can delete individually. And if I hit save all, the software will just save each image in our project directory for the case. So that's really neat tool there. Close that. Another thing here, so lots of new features in this section, anatomic tab. So these are our tools with presets here for different tooth parts and different areas of the teeth that we can adjust. So this is a click and drag adjustment tool here. What's new is we're highlighting in green the affected area on the tooth. So in previous versions, it might have been kind of difficult to tell exactly what part of the tooth or how much surface area would be affected by that tool. And now as I move the mouse around, it's highlighting in green what part's going to be adjusted. So here's entire tooth. So that's really useful, and that also is a setting in here. So if you don't like that color, you can toggle that off. Visualize the sections to be modified during freeforming, so you can uncheck that box and turn that feature off. I think it's really useful, but if you can toggle that off if you want to. So last thing we'll cover here before we jump into some new stuff with Model Creator, I'm going to go back to expert mode, And save our tooth models again. And there's some new things here regarding minimum thickness settings for crowns. So if I go to set minimum thickness for one of my preps and go to the options here, this stuff is new here. So previously the software automatically enforced whatever the minimum thickness setting was that you had set in either DentalDB, or if you went into expert mode and changed it here, it would just bump it out to that thickness. There's some more options here to better handle situations where maybe the opposing is close only in a certain area and you want to go below the regular minimum thickness. So the two options in yellow, you can cut locally to the antagonist or reduce everywhere. And these are going to be the suggested minimum thickness, so the position that you have that minimum thickness slider. The red options let you go below that. So this will trim the minimum thickness all the way to the lowest minimum thickness setting that minimum thickness slider can be moved to, either in certain areas or everywhere on the entire tooth prep. So a little better flexibility there. A lot of times cases aren't obviously prepped ideally, so you have scenarios where you need to bring certain areas down below minimum thickness. So hopefully that will give us more flexibility with handling those situations. Let's switch gears a little bit and switch over to model creators. We have a lot of good stuff in model creator in this version. So I'm going to pull up a case here that we can use. So this is model creator. I'm going to launch model creator directly from DentalDB. And of course, you have the flexibility of designing a model after you design restorations, or right from DentalDB if you want to design your model first. In a few seconds, our CAD should start up here. We're going to show you a new mode of designing models that adds a little more automation to the model design process. So I'm going to load my scans. And over in the model type section, we're going to choose plateless model quick. So that's the new mode here, quick model. So I can see my upper and lower limits. Of course, we can adjust the desired height of the model. I'll leave it at 40 millimeters for this. And the next step, 3D data editor. So this is normal for model creator if you want to trim away any of the scan data that you don't want included in your model. This scan has margin lines that were imported. So I'm going to click the next button and apply our margin lines automatically. Good time-saving feature if you want to use the imported margin lines. And now the automation is taking over. So what it's doing is just going through the model calculation steps using default values for quick models. So if I rotate this a little bit, we can see it's already generated our dies, finished calculating the upper. Now it's going on to the opposing, the mandibular arch. And in a few seconds, it's jumping to the attachments step already. And now it's finalizing the model calculation and putting attachments on there. So it's put a few support pins on, and now it's a finished model. So you can see there in just a few seconds, we've gone through and we have finished model output. I'm going to reopen that case and show some additional features here. So I'm going to go back and launch Model Creator again, and we'll just go through that model in a different mode here. So we have some new interesting articulator attachments and freeform tools that will show you. All right, so for this one, I'm going to do plateless model to cut out dies. Let's jump through these first couple steps real quick here. This is 3D data editor. This isn't new, but I'll go ahead and just trim off some of our model here. Hit the delete key, delete button. Again, we'll use our imported margin lines. going to go through and quickly apply the margins automatically. And now I'll get to the main model design step here. So for this case, I want to show you a tool with freeforming the gingiva masks. So before we get there, you probably saw a couple pop-up images here. So in this version, for every setting parameter that we have in Model Creator, there's an animated GIF image that shows exactly what's being adjusted for that particular setting. So we started this with Model Creator just because there are so many parameters and settings here, and sometimes the terminology might be completely clear as to what it's adjusting. So now for every setting, you can clearly see what that parameter is doing. Of course, we get a lot of requests to do that for every setting in the software. We'll see if we can do that, but at least for Model Creator, we have some nice help there with the parameters. So I'm going to add a gingiva mask to this case. So I'm going to click the Add button and start placing points. And what I'm doing now is just marking off the section of the scan that I want to cut out as that section, separate gingiva mask section. So to create a separate STL file for that can be printed in a separate material. So now I'm going to run the model calculation. There's our dies calculated. And now it's going to calculate the shape of the base, and it's going to calculate that separate gingiva section. There we go. If I turn the scan off, we can see that already. So that'll be a separate file for the gingiva. And the tool, of course, gingiva mask was in the previous version. So what's new here is if I go to expert mode, while we're working on our model, right click on gingiva, and there's a new tool here, freeform model gingiva. So that turns everything off automatically except for my gingiva, and now we can need add, remove, and smooth flatten tools if there's any areas that we want to correct or modify on our gingiva section prior to manufacturing that. So that's really useful. And flexibility feature there for models. We'll go back to the wizard and we'll go ahead and calculate the opposing for this model, so we can take a look at some new articulator stuff. So now it's just applying my default settings for the lower model, and that's finished. So now we're at the model attachment step. So what we introduced in this version is a new articulator attachment module called XSnap. So if I scroll down a little bit here, if you get that module set up, you get a whole bunch of options here. And in general, what XSnap is, it's an articulator system that has predefined channels in it that allow you to simulate condylar movements at specific angles. So you'll notice there's a bunch of different angle settings for these articulators. Just left click on the model to place one. Similar to other attachments, I can left click and move that around. I'm going to click over here and place the second one. And those are configured in the software that they stay parallel and they stay at the same height. So we don't have to worry about keeping those parallel, and they're always going to stay in sync with each other as I'm moving those around. And let me see if I can rotate this a little bit. So you can see back here, this is what's unique with this system. And it's a ball and socket design, and there's a channel cut out at a specific degree angle to simulate this. So this is a 20-degree one. And they print flush with the model base, so that will be flush on your printer build platform. There's a setting over here for hinge clearance, so if those are printing out a little too tight or too loose in the socket there, you can account for that over in the wizard with that setting. Let me switch to a different one. There's one I was checking out earlier that looked interesting. So this one, I think, is the new addition for here. Let me turn these two off with the delete key, and then we'll switch to the TBM R5. So this one allows multiple movements with the same articulator, not just a single angle. So this is TDM. It stands for total dynamic movement, and it's their term. So we can go through excursions, protrusion, retrusion on a single articulator. And you can print this out. This attaches to the model and prints out it all connected, so you don't have to remount on another articulator or glue an articulator on. So our other model, there we go. So this calculated model, holes for our dies cut out. The articulator sections would be attached to that model. They cut off the part that was sticking in because it was overlapping quite a bit, so it automatically trims that away. So pretty nice looking articulator system there. That is everything for models. Let me go back to DentalDB. Another function I just want to talk about real quick is dental share. Not completely new, but I like to point it out because it's extremely useful, and not everybody is fully aware that they get that functionality built in free with their exocad software. So dental share is a built-in platform that allows you to send cases to another user, another exocad user, or a production center. So when I click the dental share button, it's going to apply to that case I have currently loaded. And so it's a model that say I want to send it somewhere for production. And after I click a service, so everything in here from case review, production, model production, design, we have exoplan implant planning software, so there's some options related to surgical guide production. So whatever the services we're asking the recipient to do, we just pick that service, click a recipient in the middle. The right side is going to show us what files that we're sending. In some cases, we have the option of unchecking or removing files that are not needed. And then we click the OK button, and that case is sent to that user. So then we get some immediate information. Down in the lower left corner, we can see that that case has been uploaded, and it shows the receiver of the case down there. Click the Details tab. You can see all the files that were sent. Down at the bottom, there's an attachment button, so I can send additional files. If I asked them to design based on a pre-op scan and I forgot to include it, I can click the attach button, browse for a file, and send that after the fact. There's also a messaging function in here, so the two parties that are involved in this case can send messages back and forth, and those will show up on the message log here and stay within that case. So you can ask questions. Again, you can ask for missing files, anything you need to complete the case. So that's a little bit about dental share. A couple other items I just want to show real quick here. We have the exocad wiki site, of course, which is a really good resource. And it's basically the user manual for the software. So whether you have the software or thinking about getting it, you can see all the different functions. If we go to DentalCAD platform, there's different languages. You have walkthroughs of all the different modules, and we try to keep this up to date, of course, with the current versions of the software. So you can get a walkthrough of all the different modules and tools, and there's links to videos here. And that's another really good resource is the exocad YouTube channel. So let's go to YouTube, exocad GmbH, and we have a lot of great resources here on YouTube. So we have recordings of past webinars. We have a lot of training videos here. There's short videos all the way up to over an hour long recordings of webinars and available on our YouTube channel. A couple other announcements, and then we'll have some time to check out questions. Let me jump back to the PowerPoint slides here. the web shop. So this is shop.exocad.com. So we've launched a new training resource available at this site. Here you can browse a variety of introductory training sessions on different topics from DentalCAD modules, exoplan basics, and PC system checkup. So we can log in and just make sure that the software is running correctly and update your system if you need to. Of course, they'll receive certificates and access to the recordings after the training. So go ahead and take a look and check that out. Coming up next year, we have a fantastic event planned. If you've not heard of exocad Insights, it's our user event where you'll have the opportunity to network with many exocad experts, our support team experts, and everybody that works at exocad, industry partners and peers from around the world. We typically present new features, and it's just a great chance to keep up to speed with cutting edge CAD innovations. So you can scan the link here or go right to our website to check out registration information, and hopefully we'll see you there. So at this point, I would like to thank everybody for joining the webinar. We have a few minutes left. If I'll check in with Patricia and see if there's any questions that we'd like to answer.
Yeah.
So
There
we'll
are
stay on.
no questions so far, Lucas. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
that was very
Did everybody fall asleep out there? Hopefully not.
no.
We'll hang on for another minute. So if you do want to ask something
Okay.
real quick, just go ahead and type that in.
Sure.
And we will just hang on for another minute. So if you haven't updated to DentalCAD Rijeka yet, as you can see, there's a lot of cool features and just time-saving stuff, and we try to make it more flexible and easier to use and be able to do more cases in the software.
Yeah, we have a question here about the XNAP articulator. What is the advantage of the TDM R5 articulator over the regular XNAP?
So the TDM, I believe the advantage to that is that you can simulate multiple movements instead of just the condylar angle adjustment. Actually, for more in-depth information, you can check out, it's from a company called XDepot. So if you look up XDepot online, they have a great website with a lot of information about all those. So there you'll be able to see a lot more information there and the difference between the different articulators. So that's not something we came up with. We partnered with XDepot and their module is available. So certainly check out their website as a resource.
Okay, we have another question, Lucas.
Okay.
When designing a single tooth, the simple menu isn't available in tooth positioning. When instead you design the bridge and you set up just a single tooth, you need to go to advanced tool.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if you have.
Yeah. So yeah, they're probably talking about getting to instant anatomic morphing and those type of tools. Yeah. So for single tooth workflows, those have been brought to the forefront. So instant anatomic morphing's on right away. For multiple unit cases, it's still in the advanced tab. That might change, if we get enough feedback to change that for multi-unit cases. But yeah, that's how that works. Yep.
Yeah.
Last chance. If you guys are signing off, thanks for joining. And if there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah, I don't think there are more questions.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day. And again, thanks for your interest in exocad software. And we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.